Hello, hello, welcome back to the Stickman sessions. It's been a while since we've done a podcast, but we've got a really special guest on the show this week. I've had an awesome time chatting with him. It's Jeremy Gladstone, who runs Sleeping Bag Studios. They're based over in Canada. They offer music reviews, interviews, all kinds of things related to artists and bands who are trying to reach a wider audience, basically, same sort of thing that we do at Stereo Stickman. It's been awesome chatting with him. We got into a lot of different subjects, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. We're also going to be playing some of his songs throughout the session from his band and some of the stuff that he's done by himself as a musician. So I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for tuning in. So how long have you been doing Sleeping Bag Studios for then? When did that begin?
Basically started in 2012. And it was really just kind of a means to an end. I was putting towels in a dryer one day, literally putting towels in a dryer, and I just kind of snapped. You know, it was one of those moments of real levity where I kind of realized that I wasn't doing anything productive. I wasn't creating anything. I wasn't adding to the world, you know, in any kind of meaningful way. So for me, it was really important to figure that out. And so I basically just kind of quit right then and there. I stopped the job that I had. I was a production supervisor and looking after all kinds of different people doing normal corporate stuff. And it wasn't difficult. It was just not the life that I wanted at all.
Yeah, it just wasn't fulfilling.
Yeah, exactly, right? So in the place that I was living at the time, there was this odd kind of rectangle space that you could see in the wall in between where I kind of my office and where the garage was. It was just a rectangle, and you could kind of see it bubbling out from the wall just a little bit. So basically, we took a sledgehammer to it, and we put a window in there. And then we put sleeping bags all over the walls. And we just decided that was going to be the best possible way to start something. And we didn't even know what it was, but we just kind of let it blossom organically from there.
That's amazing. So I was going to ask, how did it come to be called that? But it was literally a sleeping bag studio.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it is I got a lot of inspiration, obviously, from different musicians and bands and artists out there, of course. But Dave Grohl, obviously, Foo Fighters, won his Grammy for Wasting Light, that album, and it was recorded in their garage.
Yeah.
I mean, how inspiring is that? The ultimate message of that whole thing being just go out there and do it.
Yeah.
And, regardless of the results. So, some of our first recordings you can hear on wet days. You can hear cars driving by on the street outside because they're the tires on the rain kind of thing. So It became kind of this weird, neat little addition that happens. A lot of people say there's different qualities or things about a studio that kind of give a studio its own thing. And, it's moved now. I moved all the way across Canada, but back in the BC days, that's kind of, I guess, where it started. Yeah. That's
awesome. So, Did you say 2012?
Yeah, 2012, very end of 2012. So.
Okay. And were you, are you a musician yourself anyway? Were you involved in it that way?
Technically, yeah. I mean, I guess there's kind of two ways to look at it. I'm the son of a musician, so my dad plays in Canadian bands. They're Prism and Doug and the Slugs are two that people might know. They're still Canadian, so it's a long way over there, but they're both kind of 80s bands that had mid-level fame. So I kind of came by it honestly that way. I've played different instruments my entire life, from guitar to drums to bass to electronics and everything in between. Most of the time now in my music, I'm a singer, believe it or not, with this voice. Somehow.
Awesome. Yeah. Are you in a band or just you doing your own thing?
Yeah, no, it's technically a two-man band. We've been together for about the last, probably about 18 years now, actually, somewhere around there, yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, you've got full editing control over this, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll let you know the name. I don't want to just say the band because, that obviously sounds pretty lame, but, depending on your, listeners and whatnot, the
Yeah.
band's name is Balls Deep in Your Stepmom. So, I mean, there's,
That's quite,
like I said, 18 years ago is when it started, right? But yeah, you could decide whether or not to put that out there for the people. But that's the truth. Yeah. The idea was never really to take it seriously. At the time that band started, believe it or not, it was actually my best friend at the time. His name is Rob. And basically what he did was he just asked me, do you want to start a band with no knowledge, no instruments, no know-how, no clue on how to do it whatsoever? Do you just want to make a band? That was the simple question and the simple idea. And so we said, yeah, let's do it. And I'm not even kidding, Rebecca. Overnight, I went to work for a graveyard shift at a gas station. Horrible job. But I went to work, and by the time I came home that morning, he had taken all of our friends over to construct this box, this huge box inside the master bedroom, where you had to pick up this door. It wasn't even on hinges. You had to pick it up and slam it into the hole to seal it shut. But inside there was where we did our first jamming, which was insane. It got to be about 300 degrees within about 3 minutes. It wasn't a good place to be. It wasn't fun.
That was quite a cool starting point, though. What kind of music do you make? Are you guys like a rock band? Or?
No, I mean, we're actually surprisingly inoffensive, believe it or not. For the band name being what it is, it was always just kind of a running joke. But at the end of the day, I'd say it's mostly electro-based now. I let him handle all the hard stuff, the making of the music and the assembling of the pieces and the chords and all that. That's him. I just do the easy thing. I show up to the microphone and I just get very lucky.
Nice. So do you guys do you play gigs?
No, we've actually never once played live, and here's an interesting and fun fact for you. We've probably recorded somewhere around the neighborhood of, I would say, legitimately about 600 songs. Not even kidding. And I can guarantee you that we couldn't play one of them once again. Not once. I bug musicians all the time because they always have to remember their material, which I think is hilarious. I tell them I don't play to remember. I play to forget. It's a totally different thing. So
that's quite
interesting. We
interesting.
create a song, we record it, and then we move on.
So it's like a therapeutic get it off your chest kind of thing, and then
I guess it's kind of always been that. It's there's never been
that.
like a defined topic or write about this or write about that. I don't ask him to sound any certain way when it comes to the music. I don't ask him to be electro if he wants to pick up guitars, if he wants to do real instruments. Again, if he's willing to do the work and send me an instrumental track to sing to, I'm quite willing to wait for it, however it might show up. It's cool with me.
Nice. So when did you start writing music reviews then, or that kind of thing? Was that pretty much as soon as you opened the studio, or was it a different kind of thing?
No.
Right.
Actually, I did music reviews quite a bit earlier before Sleeping Bag Studios. So when we were originally trying to get people into the studio, when it was more of a physical thing, because now I'm much more online.
Yeah.
But when it was more of a physical thing, we were trying to figure out how to draw people in there. And then that's kind of where I came in. I used to write for an online magazine called Kludge Magazine. And they're no longer around anymore, but they used to handle mainstream acts, and given that they were in the U.S. and I was in Canada, I kind of had the ability to go and see a lot of artists and bands that they didn't know about, or just generally Canadian bands that they didn't get to interview or get to see down south. So I ended up, my first interview was with Tegan from Tegan and Sarah. You probably know them or have heard that name somewhere around. Yeah, believe it or not, that was my first interview. And no instructions, no, this is how you do an interview, no anything. So if you can believe it or not, you remember the old tape recorders?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're...
Like a dictaphone.
Okay, so, yeah. So, I mean, I'm talking old school cell phone, flip phone. So I've got the recorder up here. I'm holding it like that as best I can, trying to hear what she's got to say in response to the questions that I've got. I ended up talking to her for 3 hours.
Wow.
3 hours. And, you know, it's one thing to not know what you're doing and kind of be put in that position to begin with. But it's an entirely different thing when you encounter an artist that's willing to give you their time like that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure she picked up on the fact that I was new. And keep in mind, this is 18 years ago. She was new too. You know, it wasn't exactly like it was just me.
Yeah, yeah. So
they were right at the beginning. Not nearly as big. Yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
So, yeah, that's kind of where it started for me. There's different other bands and stuff, like Our Lady Peace or Finger 11 or Seether or Chevelle, different bands, usually rock bands because, well, that's where I was from Vancouver, BC.
Yeah.
Or just outside of Vancouver, BC, but really that's what Vancouver is all about. They're about the rock, so that's generally what I saw a lot of at that time, but that's kind of how I got started, was kind of... you know, big shout out to the Kludge crew if they're out there anywhere and still listening.
Yeah.
They were just amazing people, and it was great to kind of get a start with them.
That's awesome. I think it's nice when you have something that long, because you can't, if someone's being a little bit, you know, holding back or perhaps being a bit inauthentic, if it's a 3 hour long discussion, you're bound to turn into yourself at some point.
Absolutely.
I think.
Yeah,
I'm quite like
for
that.
Sure. I think about it now, and I'm just, you know, it blows my mind that she would do that, you know? Like, I just think, you know, what a cool person she must be. Keep in mind, they wouldn't give me time of day now. There's no way. Even, I could reach out through Sleeping Bag Studios, and I'd have to go through about 100 lines of defense just to get to Tegan and Sarah now. But are they still those same people? I bet they are.
I bet she would say yes if you could make it, to that point.
Absolutely, right?
In terms of like what you do online at the minute, for anyone that doesn't know, so you run sleepingbagstudios.ca. That's the one, isn't it?
That's the one. Yeah, you got it.
And you offer music reviews, interviews. I think you do your own podcast. What are the main like services that you do then for people?
The main things I do, I do music reviews. I do what I call the SBS podcast, super inventive name, and another show that we put on the internet called SBS Live This Week. And again, most of these things were kind of developed, I would say, just kind of out of finding our way, So when I say that the studio opened for Sleeping Bag Studios in 2012, really that's kind of when SBS Live This Week first started up as well. Because, you could go back to the construction of the studio, and that's going to go back into February earlier that year. But, by the time that we opened, we had no idea what we were doing, like less than zero idea what we were doing. So it ended up being like kind of a mad scramble. Now that we've got this great studio for us, we've got all of the toys that we need, all of the cords to set it up. How do we get the people in here? And one of the ways that we did that was through a show called SBS Live This Week, which was really just kind of originally intended to bring people into the studio just to see what we were about. And just to, again, hopefully show them that really ultimately the studio had its own personality and could kind of give them a place that was designed by musicians for musicians to go in there and just kind of really maybe get something entirely different out of themselves and out of their music. And, I don't know whether or not I can claim that happened. I would like to think that I could claim that happened, but it's it's one of those things. Everybody's going to have their own different perspective on it. Some of those interviews that we did went great. We did a lot of interviews and live performances, and obviously some better than others. That's just part and parcel. That's the way things go, right?
Yeah, of course. So are you still doing that regularly?
More or less, again, with kind of the shift into more of an online thing, which is really the result of just moving across Canada and kind of resetting up over here in the East. But what I do now is a lot of video interviews, which is kind of a neat concept. And I started this back when I was doing interviews in person as well, so it didn't, it wasn't something that I felt like I had to do or was the only option to do it. It was something that I felt offered something new. And in a way it's similar to an email interview in a way, because I pre-tape the questions, so that's how it would go. I would send you a question set, Rebecca, and it would have, questions 1 through 25 or whatever. But what I encourage people to do is, first of all, think about the viewer. Think about things from a visual standpoint, and try and encourage bands to obviously show us more than they're going to tell us. And by them having the questions for as long as they do, which is, I have no expiry date on them, they can work on it as long as they want. But it gives them that option to kind of really attack it from a creative level. So they're able to take the time and, they can go and film in different places. And some of these things have ended up so incredibly unique, and the experience itself is so massively rewarding that some of the best friends that I think I can definitively say that I've met through the Sleeping Bag Studios project in general have come from these video interviews where artists have really just kind of had a chance to open up in a whole different way.
That's
if
awesome.
That makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. I like that.
Because, I've had guys that I basically tell people that there's no wrong answer, right? And I'm sure, as an interviewer, you understand this. Every question is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And, are we here to talk about what you want to talk about, or are we here to talk about what I want to talk about, right? And it's one of those things, I'm here to talk about whatever you want to talk about today. That's the facts. But when I'm talking to a band, I tell them the exact opposite. I'm not here to talk about what I want to talk about. I'm here to talk about what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
So their job is to really find a way to direct me back to that point, whatever it is that they want to bring up.
Yeah.
And you have that ability in an interview if you steer it the right way. You know?
Yeah, I like that. I always tend to go overboard with the questions, and then if they don't want to answer any, they don't have to. But if they do want to, and it's the deep stuff, then that's when it gets quite interesting, I think.
Right. I love it when people, I tell them again, right? Like if you don't, because I get those people as well where they'll say, I don't want to answer this question, or I don't want to go into that or whatever. That's fine. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But why not take the opportunity itself and do something fun with it? So that's why I encourage people, like in a situation where, say, I don't know, I ask them something generic like, what have you got planned for the rest of this year or something like that. And instead they look directly at the camera and tell me that they like ketchup or something completely off base, or it doesn't have to be an answer to the question. Again, it's still an opportunity. It's just about how you use it as a band creatively.
Yeah absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's fun.
No, I'm glad that it's nice to get your insight and expertise on that kind of thing, actually.
It gives me a chance to just kind of, I don't know, I don't think people really see it coming for the most part. I don't know. I've had some really kind of great, genuine reactions out of that project where it's like, I don't know, people tend to kind of view me as a fairly serious person from the writing, I think. So when they see me kind of just clowning around a little bit on screen, I'm just having fun with it because I think that kind of encourages people to do the same, right?
Yeah, puts you at ease.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, cool. So can we talk a little bit about writing music reviews as such? Because I think you have a similar approach to me in that you look at it quite objectively, like regardless of genre, you kind of assess what works about it. What do you think makes a really great song, regardless of genre or style of music? Just a well-written, really good song that connects, kind of thing.
Right. That's a fair question for sure. I think for me, what makes a song connect is that you have to be able to hear that the artist or the band themselves connected with the song. And by that I mean, it doesn't have to have words, but if it does, I like to hear that the singer found the meaning behind the words, and they can translate that emotion through that. Usually they're doing that in some sort of a relationship with the music itself, some sort of paired energy with the melody and the music and the way that the vocals sound. If it's just an instrumental band, you need to be able to hear the passion in those instruments. You need to be able to hear that those notes mean something and that they're contributing to the song in some sort of valid and meaningful way. There's all kinds of different ways that people would define what makes a great song. And, I'm just as guilty as anybody else of having my own guilty pleasures or songs that I wouldn't consider to be great songs or songs that are supposed to be in the Hall of Fame kind of thing. So in a lot of ways, what makes a great song is really just what resonates with us personally.
Yeah.
And I don't really think there's ever, there's no wrong answer to that question.
No,
Rebecca.
no.
At the end of the day, it's one of those things. I support people listening to music, so I've always said whatever it is that floats their boat is absolutely cool with me. It might not be my favorite thing, but at the end of the day, if it's something that gets them listening to music, I'm in. That's
nice.
Awesome.
So what do you think it means to have a successful career in music these days, if for bands and artists?
I think it really has to be defined by their own... I don't want it to sound like a cop-out, but it has to be defined by their own definition of what that success is. I think if you're a band and you're out there and you're looking for 100,000 hits overnight, or if you're looking to become a viral sensation within a week kind of thing, then enjoy your fleeting fame. That's the best way that I can put it, and probably the nicest way that I can put it. If you're an artist that wants to keep their head down and do the work and get right into the art of it all, then you're going to enjoy a really lengthy career, a long following full of people that might not, I don't know, they might not burn down the forest to come and see your show, but they're going to support you album after album, and they're going to continually visit and see what you do. So, I think that there's a huge misperception out there in terms of what success really is.
Yeah.
And I think that there are artists that really get it, and I think that there are definitely all too many that don't.
So it depends on what you want to get out of it, and then
Absolutely, for sure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want the fast money and the cars and all that stuff, if you want that, you can do it. I mean, any band out there tomorrow, I've always said this: if you can create yourself a parachute with your band logo on it, and you want to do a base jump off of a rooftop building and land yourself perfectly in the middle of Main Street, believe me, you'll create a name for your band, and you'll be successful overnight. I don't know that it's going to last, because you can't get by on a gimmick, right? You have to have some substance there, and I think that, to me, success would be able to, would be to be able to look back on that career and go, I put my heart and soul into every moment, regardless of what the results are, just that you could at least say that that's what you did, that's what you accomplished. Yeah. And, hopefully it's something that you can look back on and be proud of, whether or not it ever got on the radio or not.
Yeah, for sure. People can tell. It's the same when you go to a gig. You can tell if someone's into it and, means what they sing and is enjoying being there, as opposed
Absolutely,
to, just having, memorized something.
For sure.
So are there any stories that come to mind of bands or artists that you have seen go from kind of the small venue down the end of the street to much more of a much wider audience in recent years?
That have come through Sleeping Bag Studios specifically, or that have...
Yeah, if there are some, or just some that you've followed as a fan, or...
I mean, there's definitely... Inarguably, there's definitely a progression for a lot of bands out there. I don't know that I can specifically say that I've seen anybody go and, crack the award shows or anything like that, but I've certainly seen bands develop from, just the formation, the very kind of seed of an idea to, now they're out there touring Europe and stuff. So, I think of a band like... West My Friend. They're a fantastic indie folk band. I highly recommend checking them out. They are fantastic people, extraordinary musicians, just wonderful, wonderful people. And same thing, I've seen their band lineup switch a couple of times. I've seen the Growing Pains. I've seen that kind of stuff. But I've also seen them take awards home. I've seen them learn to find a way to make the music the priority, and I've seen the benefits of that. To be, not to harp on the point too much, but when it comes to what defines success or what creates success, your band's got to be into it. The players have to be into it. Hopefully, it's not just the one person out of four.
Yeah.
In interviews, I've done this countless times, Rebecca. You should try this if you ever get the chance. It's great. Just take a look at your lineup of 4 people there. You got your drummer, 2 guitar players, and bass player or whatever. Look for the palest one, and that is the person that is stuck doing all of the web stuff, all of the promotion for the band. It's the only guy that never gets to see the sunlight because the other 3 guys are busy doing whatever it is they do, but the one dude is stuck doing that stuff all day long, right? And I think that bands like West My Friend have really shown me that when you put in that extra work to disprove the myth that there's nowhere to play, to disprove the myth that you can't go out there and make it as an indie band, they're truly an inspiring story just to see them do all of what they do now without any management, but they're doing it on their own, and they're touring on the other side of the ocean, which is unheard of for
Yeah.
tiny little bands around here, and it's just that kind of stuff to me is extremely inspiring.
Yeah. That's amazing.
There's other bands I can think of that, there's lots of people that are on their like 4th or 5th CD or 4th or 5th album by now, and I think that kind of stuff is incredibly cool as well.
Yeah.
I really, it sounds nerdy, but I really dig longevity. I dig it when bands can actually stick it out and, find a way to be around for a while.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's, I really don't think it's the easiest thing. I think, a lot of people really do struggle with trying to find a way to keep that communication open between different players. I think it's difficult to represent, the full needs of each player inside a band.
To keep that motivation there and that passion, I guess.
Sure.
And that's quite common then. You've got to be quite lucky to find a band, especially if there's 3 or 4 of you or more. Where you're equal, you're all as invested in it as each other.
Exactly.
You often get just one that breaks away.
That's why I make music with one other guy or by myself.
Yeah.
That's the only options for me. I'd love to say that I'm capable of more, but I don't know that I am. I really don't.
would you say, if we get back into kind of promoting yourself as a band and an artist, because that's kind of what people come to Sleeping Bag Studios for and to Stereo Stickman for, is to try and find people who are going to like their music. What would you say are some of the best tools at the moment online that people can use to find the right audience for their music and to find people that will support them if they're small time, not a lot of cash to invest in marketing, just some of the best tips that you could give for online promotion, I guess?
Well, I mean, that is... There are so many different avenues that's kind of part of the issue. It's part of the problem, as far as I can understand it, is that there's so many different small places that people tend to get overwhelmed. So the biggest tip that I have is, don't look at it like you have to conquer the world overnight. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
And I think that every indie band needs to kind of take a step back and realize that if they were out there realistically looking online for one place like Stereo Stickman or Sleeping Bag Studios per day, Rebecca, for a fact that they're not doing it. I'd love to say that they are, but it's rare. And I think that if people really recognize that there are these places out there all over the world, from there's Jamsphere, there's Faulkner Review, there's tons. There's fantastic places out there, and I really just think that it's a matter of taking your time to kind of figure out a strategic way of doing it, because every tour that you go on as a band, every show that you play, you have an opportunity. You've probably got some downtime. So find that college radio station that's out there. Find that place that's playing music. Find that other opening band that you're about to play the show with that night, and ask them what's going on in their town.
Yeah.
If you're out of town, there's a lot of different ways that people can get out there. In terms of the social media thing, in terms of the Twitter thing, that kind of stuff, I'm mixed on that. I don't know how effective of a tool it is for musicians right now. The other places, obviously, like Spotify and SoundCloud and Bandcamp, I think what's really important is that people start recognizing that they can't rely on the music itself to be what makes them financially successful. And in terms of attracting interest or creating that buzz online, one of the ways that they can achieve that is use that member of the band, or find that friend of yours that has that artistic talent. Bring them in as an honorary member of the band, or whatever you have to do. Get them to draw you a logo, or create the buzz through something that visually looks stunning.
Yeah.
If all else fails, add a kitten to your video, and you're a YouTube star.
Great tip.
You can always do that, right?
So do you still think it's important for artists and bands to perform live a lot if they want to reach people?
Crucially. Yeah. I think that's probably the most important thing that any band can do.
Because you get that face-to-face interaction, and it's as real.
Yeah, right. And, in terms of what we were talking about earlier, in the sense of a connection to the song, or what makes a song great, you're going to see that in a live band in a heartbeat. I think there's I don't know, I wouldn't say there's ways to fake it in the studio, but there's definitely ways to manipulate sincerity, let's say, in a studio recording, as opposed to what you're going to see live in the genuine article, right? Yeah. And in terms of just what people, again, right, they're not necessarily going to go out and buy the CD or the music for $9.99, but they are going to consider going to a show. Yeah. I think that it does apply somewhat to music fans specifically, and I think even that is something that I used to ask people in kind of group sessions, like, raise your hand if you were at home on a Thursday night and you were sitting there, you were having dinner, you were watching your favorite show. And when was the last time that you can remember where you were sitting there and you said, you know what, let's turn the TV off for a second, and let's go and see a local show. Who's playing tonight? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Who cares?
Yeah.
Let's just go and see a show. And I kid you not, even in a room full of musicians, you get like next to no hands raised on a question like that. And it kind of almost boggles the mind, right? We're all part of this huge music community, and when it comes right down to it, if it's not your band on stage, I think a lot of musicians are guilty of not getting out there in the scene themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that that's another really important thing that they can, they got to remember that. They got to keep that in the back of their mind and get out there to other people's shows just as much as their own.
Do you think the explosion of the internet or social media has made people a bit more introverted then, or a little bit more, indoorsy, I guess?
Well, I think, yeah, that's fair. I know it's done that for me.
Right.
I'm a hermit now, so I mean, there's that for sure. But I think it's given, I think it's worked for it and against it. I think there's positives and negatives to that situation. I think it's given a lot of people that, didn't think they had the opportunity to be musicians, the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, totally.
These are people that would have hidden in their home with their amazing talent for years, but now sometimes they either A, get filmed by their friend and get posted up on YouTube without them even knowing, and all of a sudden they're a star, or they just decide to start experimenting with it themselves. But I think a lot of untapped talent has kind of been discovered that way as well. So
Yeah.
I'm certainly in favor of it when it comes right down to it. Are bands a little bit guilty of kind of being able to get away with putting out more things online and not getting out there on stage as much? I think that's probably legitimate too, yeah, for sure.
Do you think that indie music communities then, kind of like what the sort of thing that we do, are getting bigger in that respect because more and more people can just sit at home, put something out, and get a few, say up to 1,000 people listening to it and encouraging them about it then?
Absolutely. I had someone ask me just the other day, like, what's the positive and the negative of the music scene right now? And my answer was the same for both. It's just that there's too much music out there. And what an awesome problem to have, right? For people like you and me, like that's the greatest thing that I could have ever thought that I'd have to deal with in my entire life. But that's the facts. Every band out there right now is dealing not just with the competition of what else is out there in their genre right now, but we're talking about music from the beginning of time forward. And, it doesn't take I'm terrible at math, so I can tell you for a fact, it doesn't take a math genius to figure out how many bands there theoretically might be in the world, times the amount of songs, times the amount of albums, to know that you don't have enough time to listen to them all in one lifetime.
Yeah.
Certainly not anymore, and I think back in the day when you had to be a little bit more picky and choosy with the CDs and things that you might buy from the store, I don't want to say that it kind of gave you an appreciation for what you bought, because Lord knows I bought too many albums that I probably would never buy again. But, it kind of did give you an appreciation for how rare music was.
Yeah.
And I think, now with the doors being as open as they are, it's really tough to get your music heard, even from your good friends. Everybody's busy and everybody's, always got something going on, and that's totally understandable.
Yeah, everybody's got their own thing. Yeah.
Yeah, again, as musicians, we got to recognize that and battle against it, though, and make sure you're giving your buddy the time of day or whatever it takes.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's actually... Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, the way we make it is together. We don't do it alone, and that's... I think I see a lot. You must have them over there in the UK too, like kind of like what do they call them? Like talent searches here, somewhat. They're like an indie level talent thing, like a spotlight feature where bands will get to go and kind of be judged by one record executive for a potential chance at one contract or somebody to hopefully look you in a suit and tie and maybe give you the consideration and time of day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's events like those that I think that bands and artists out there really lose focus on, just how much that kind of stuff can build their community. Because, I mean, let's face it, most of those things that they're going to go to, the odds are stacked against them. The odds of them winning are probably slim and none, even if you're super talented. But what you do have, again, is a complete opportunity where you've got, who knows, maybe between 1 and 100 bands that are there, and they're all indie bands, and they're all there for the same purpose that your band is for, is there for.
Yeah.
And if you're taking the time and you're doing it right, you're out there and you're, I don't want to call it networking, but I guess that's kind of what it is. It's networking on a musician level. You should be out there talking to every single one of them and trying to figure out how to line up shows and how to get different shows going, and figuring out which band, like if it's not your band that would play well with them or fit the bill, then it's probably your friend's band, and connect those two. But again, right, the idea is that we all have to do it together. That's the best way the indie scene can thrive.
Remove the competition element of it and
exactly
bring everything together.
And I think, and being realistic with you, Rebecca, I think that competition element, you nailed it there. I think that it is a factor, and I think that it's natural. I think everybody wants to be in the best band out there. Otherwise, I'm not sure why they got into it in the first place. But I still think there has to be a bigger goal than that.
Yeah, but it has to be like to be the best that you can be, because you can't. There's so many different ways to be one of the best bands. I mean, how many do we all know that are huge? The people that headline the big festivals, that they play on the mainstream radio, and there's tons of those people. Do you think then? So. For me, I always try to listen to music more in terms of like, I'm one of these people who will get a favourite song and I'll listen to it on repeat, and I'll listen to it in the car, and I'll just listen to it to death, basically. And I look for songs like that in all kinds of different genres. Do you think songwriting is a little kind of left behind a little bit, whereas people are like, I've got to be the best guitarist, and I've got to have the best voice, and it doesn't matter what I'm singing or playing as long as I'm the best at that? Do you think it gets left behind a little bit, or do you think that I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. That's a good question. You reminded me right away of a person that I knew once that had an 8-hour road trip and recorded, believe it or not, 2 Princes by the Spin Doctors. And that was the only song on the tape, both sides, and rode with that for 8 hours straight. I can't even imagine that. I've got musical ADD. I can listen to like a couple of seconds of a song and move on to the next one.
Really?
It gets very strange for me. So I think that there's kind of some people that are built for songwriting and some that aren't. When it comes right down to it, I think that it's definitely a skill that can be developed, and I think that there's certain things that can be tweaked there. But really, that connection to music is, it is a hard thing to learn. It is kind of one of those things that's born inside of you, or it's not. I've seen, or sorry, not so much seen, but heard quite a few artists that have spent time in Nashville. Now, I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you have like something in the fridge next to something else in the fridge, and when you go to eat that first snack, it tastes like the other snack in the fridge.
All right, I know what you mean.
That is what Nashville music is like to me, and I'm not just picking on the country genre. I'm picking on the songwriting itself.
Yeah.
I think once people go down there, I think once you've been exposed to that particular area, it's something I can hear in the way that you write a song.
Yeah.
And I think that it's things like that. I think songwriting factories like that are something that can. That's something that we need to be aware of as artists, because it's a great thing to go down there. And again, it just depends on your definition of success. They'll teach you to write a great song, but will they teach you to be you? Will they let you be you? Yeah. Will they leave the part of you that made you make music in the first place? And I think that kind of generalization, that homogenization of talent is a really dangerous thing. It threatens individual creativity, and I think that's something that has to be looked out for at all times and protected like it's an endangered species.
Yeah.
So that to me is what I'd kind of encourage people to do, is to look inward rather than outward when it comes to songwriting.
That's really interesting.
Everybody might need kind of a helping hand in terms of how to structure a song or something like that, but you can get that from your favorite artists and bands that you listen to on your own.
Yeah.
If you want somebody to teach you to play a great guitar chord, great, awesome, that's cool. Those kinds of things are going to help you along the way as tools, as long as they're not affecting as long as they don't influence you to the point where you lose yourself as an artist.
Sure.
As far as the other people go, those people that you were talking about, where they're like the virtuosos, the people that are out there that have spent their absolute life dedicated to every single moment on the guitar and stuff. Man, I wish I could be one of those people, Rebecca, don't you? I mean, come on. Some of those people I look at, I had a friend, I still have a friend. He's a great guy. His name is Brad. He's in a band called Eterna. They're, what do you call it? Well, they're pretty extreme. They call themselves brutal power metal. It doesn't sound inviting, but it's actually pretty damn good.
Cool.
And this is a guy that, I bet you if you asked him to pick up a bass guitar, he'd probably flip you the bird and tell you no. He's a guitar player through and through. He's not going to touch the drum set. He's not going to touch the bass. Guitar was what he was meant to play.
Yeah.
And, I can't even explain this guy. I mean, when it comes to the technical proficiency that he has, I asked him once to help us out on a song. We wanted to make an instrumental song out there and kind of put it out there for people to help us finish. That was a contest we were running. So I asked Brad to play a guitar part over a drum beat, basically, and we were going to leave it without bass so that people could do a bass part or add a vocal part or something like that.
Yeah.
Brad went into the studio and he recorded this thing. One time he came out and he looked at me and his face was all frowning and he's like, I don't like it. I want to do it again. And we said, okay, no problem, right? Rebecca, note for note on a wave file, right down to the very finite second, this guy played the exact same thing like it was a carbon copy. And he had never even played it before that moment. It was just something that he made up, kind of sat there for 5 minutes, said, okay, I'm going to let this rip, let's do it. Did it once, did it again perfectly. Same thing, he wasn't happy with it, did it a third time, but more or less the exact same results.
Nice.
And it's just, to me, it's amazing to see somebody that really understands that one instrument. It's kind of one of those, you're either the jack of all trades or master of none.
Yeah, he's putting his 10,000 hours kind of thing to be,
Exactly, right? And I think, I don't know what the right answer is on that one, because, I think, I would love to be both. I wish that I could, dedicate
I think it's
myself
rare.
to one thing, but I can't, I just don't have that kind of attention span. I need more than one thing that way, for sure.
No, that's where the distinction comes in, though, because there aren't too many people that are just fantastic at both, and that's where you get amazing live shows and you get amazing songs that that you can find in films and things, and that just accompany your life quite well.
Those people that kind of even take it a level beyond that, there are definitely great, individual masters of their instruments, but those people that are just so adept that they can walk up to any instrument that's on stage and feel confident enough to play it, those people blow my mind.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Definitely.
They're amazing. I've got a fair amount. I wouldn't say that I play anything well. I can write a decent song, I can play a decent song, but I'm not any kind of master of anything when it comes to instrumentation. But to see some of these people that can, just mind-blowing.
Mm. So are you a guitarist? You said you're mostly a singer. Can you play guitar?
Yeah. Whoa, that's not as easy of a question as it should be. I don't know. I don't really consider I consider myself just a musician.
Do you pick up a guitar during the week and have a dabble
like
in it.
I do that. I couldn't. Same thing. I couldn't play. I don't think. Well, we as a band we just covered. I think for the first time in 18 years, we covered I think about 10 songs, and that was. We've never tried to play anybody else's songs. We've never done anything like that before, which is usually a lot of where people start, right?
Yeah.
And for us, just because we had no idea what we were doing or any training to do it when we started our band, we never had that opportunity. So kind of I guess that's one of the progressions that we've had as a band, is that we've been able to get to a point where we can experiment with some covers and not feel bad about touching somebody else's song at this point, I guess.
It's almost expected now, isn't it, with YouTube and stuff? That's kind of...
It is. And, again, right, I caution people against that too, because I think it's a great way to get your name out there. There's no doubt in my mind that you could go out there and put somebody, whether it's a pop star or a rock band, you can pick up on a popular song and you can ride that wave real quick. You can get yourself out there and noticed just by doing a cover.
Yeah.
But if you're not putting yourself in there, if you're not somehow identifiably putting your own sound or spin onto that cover, then really you're kind of doing the musical equivalent of treading water, in my opinion. I think that you really have to be careful about that. I think I have a lot of respect for covers when it comes right down to it. And Rebecca, I'm from that era where studio time cost so much money that when it came down to a cover song, you had the option to pick like 2 in your entire life, because it was going to be so expensive to record.
Yeah.
And now it's like you get the option to do it every time you want to fire up your iPhone.
Yeah.
Which I think is, it's a really beneficial thing. But again, do you want to be known? It's kind of like the house band in bars, right? You got to be a little bit careful that you don't become the house band of YouTube.
Yeah. Unless that's what you want to do and you're not a songwriter
right.
at all. Yeah.
Totally, right? Yeah. and don't get me wrong, for those people, I got nothing but love for that. If that's what they want to do, then I think that's a great thing. I think people really do fundamentally, though, even those people, I think that they have kind of like a level of creativity that maybe they just have a more difficult time tapping into. But I think that you can see that the want and the desire to entertain on that kind of level is certainly there. So a lot of the times, even the ones that are out there doing a lot of covers as a regular mainstay of what they do, sometimes you look at the songs that they're covering and the choices that they make, and you can kind of see that potential from far away. Like if they were to write their own song, then you kind of have an idea of how that might come out.
Yeah.
It can give you some pretty good clues as to who has that potential. And I think the world's lacking a few people out there that are kind of hunting those people down. I think that we kind of rely on talent shows and that kind of stuff to spotlight that talent, or viral videos to make that happen. But there's got to be, I like to think there's more people out there like you and me that are actively looking for people that are trying to get themselves out there that way.
Yeah, and maybe doing something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's better for people to put out new music constantly if they are trying to raise their audience, or to write a lot but hold back and just release the things that they think are the absolute best?
I think it's important to put yourself out there on a regular basis, but not club people over the head with it.
Right.
I think that's an inevitable trap that I've certainly heard a lot of artists get themselves into. We can only ask people to come out to our shows so many times before, it's the 6th show, man, and I've seen your band so many times at this point, right? So it becomes difficult to get people to stick with it. Sorry, I drifted from the question.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I was thinking more of in terms of, like, say you've written, I don't know, 10 songs in a month. That's quite a lot to put out.
Yeah, sorry.
And people are going to stop pressing play at some point, even if it's really good, just because they've got busy lives and stuff.
Yeah, I think it is one of those things where you run the danger of becoming an ad for yourself, right? And even if it's offering something like new music, I think that it still kind of comes down to how you go about putting it out there that's going to make that difference, whether or not you're putting it out there without the bells and whistles and you're just making it a post on your social media that people may or may not click. Maybe that's a humble way to go about it that works. I think that, again, art kind of speaks for itself on that level, so I think that those kind of things really do get noticed, by the right people eventually, but
Yeah.
it's I don't think it's wrong to do either, really. I think there's definitely a benefit to a full album, but I don't think that a lot of people make a full album. What would you say to that, Rebecca? Do you think you know what I'm saying? There's a full album is a rare thing, is it not?
You mean hold on and create a bigger project?
I mean, like a full album where you listen to song 1 to song 12 and you
I know
go,
what you
okay,
mean, yeah.
It didn't
but
need...
it's something that I do a lot and that you do a lot because we review albums,
Right.
So you do sit and listen to every detail, and I love doing that. And I still do it in the car, to be honest. I love putting in a CD and listening to an entire album, but I don't know too many people who aren't me who do
Right,
that
right.
Anymore. People
You
you make a spotlight, a Spotify playlist, and you listen to
right,
it.
that's
Yeah.
what I was going to say. You mean more playlist kind of thing.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
is. It's a playlist mentality out there for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that too. I've been making mixtapes ever since I knew how.
Yeah.
Mixed CDs, same thing. All of those things are great things, but I think there's definitely something to be said for the album. I just don't think that it's really something that people really fully achieve a lot of times.
No.
Even if that is their full intention, even if they think that all the songs belong there in a set, I think that it can often be a very elusive goal. It's a good goal, and I think that it's something that people should definitely try to do, but I think that it's more rare than people think.
It's hard to do, though, isn't it? It's hard to either maintain someone's attention for that long when it's the same kind of voice and the same, concept, I guess.
100%. Or it can be converse too, right? Like if it's too scattered or too, in that sense, it just feels like a collection of singles.
Way too eclectic. Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, you may as well have put them out one a month and promoted yourself that way too.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said.
Do you go to a lot of gigs yourself?
I used to, and I don't want that to get out there like I'm getting old. I know you guys can see the gray in my beard, but that's it has everything to do with moving from Vancouver-ish area to over here in the east, and I gotta say, I don't want to knock my fellow Ottawantonians or whatever it is that we're called over here, but comparatively, there's a huge difference in the music scene. It's just night and day.
Yeah.
And, it's really bizarre. I'm not going to lie, Rebecca. I'm living in the nation's capital, the capital of Canada. And I'm not saying it's a drought here, but it's close.
Really?
Like, Vancouver is really well known for its music scene. I'm not sure if it's well known there in the UK, but here in Canada, it's definitely known as one of the two music hotspots. I used to joke around with the people in Toronto because Toronto, if you're to look at a lot of bands that are touring through their North American tour, it'll include a whole bunch of stops in the United States and one stop in Canada, and that's usually in Toronto. So I used to bug people over there. That's Canada. If they didn't go to Toronto, they probably made it over to Vancouver. It was usually kind of like the other stop that you might make.
Oh, okay.
Tons of great venues, tons of great things. And even on the outskirts of the main city, there's a lot of kind of mini areas, like little cities like Burnaby or Coquitlam that have live venues that are just constantly doing something.
Yeah.
And I think that again, I'm a hermit, so I'm not going to completely claim that there's nothing happening here in Ottawa, because I know that there is. I can hear the music every once in a while, but there is a noticeable difference in terms of how many kind of areas there truly are. So Ontario itself is a huge place. It's a massive province. And Toronto is about a 4 to 6 hour drive away from where I'm at. So the difference for me was that where I used to live relative to Vancouver was that no matter how late your show went, I could still drive home. The furthest I lived away from the main city was probably about an hour at the worst at some point in my life. So, even if you kept me up until 2 o'clock in the morning, I didn't mind driving home.
Yeah.
It was all good, But the idea of going out to a show now that's going to finish at like 1 o'clock at night, I can't do the drive home to make it here by like 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. For me now, Toronto, the closest music city and arguably the biggest one, it's still an overnighter trip. So all of a sudden, I added it up for, I think, the first indie band that I knew that had come from Vancouver. They're called Lungflower. They came all the way over to the east. They were the first ones to do that after I moved. And then legitimately, as much as I love these people, they're great friends, once you do the math on going to see an indie band over in Toronto, that amount of time out of the day, both ways kind of thing, the cost of the show, the cost of a hotel, all of a sudden I'm thinking, wow, it's actually closer to about 150 to 200 for me to see my favorite indie bands now. Never mind the mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
So it's,
it's fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, how come you moved?
I actually moved for that one's pretty easy. I moved for my wife. Her name's also Rebecca.
Oh, great name.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart, and she has been in my corner for every step of the way, really. So, Sleeping Bag Studios was always designed with the intention to be portable. It wasn't supposed to ever be rooted to one particular space. It was hopefully going to come along to a particular area, infect it with music mercilessly, and we'd move on to the next kind of thing, right?
Just to give you the freedom, to take it.
So, that was the basis of kind of keeping a lot of it online as well. And, when it came down to it, I assumed that creating that kind of freedom, correct me if I'm wrong here, I assumed creating that kind of freedom would have led somebody to the choice to pick somewhere tropical or like with beaches and sand and nice water, but now apparently my wife decided to take us over here into the frozen snow, of which I've still got about 2 to 3 feet of outside right now.
Honestly.
Yeah. And
I would give anything to have 2 or 3 feet of snow. We don't see any snow here.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I love it and it's beautiful. But this madness started in like November. So, I mean, at this point, even a hermit, I'm desperate to get outside, it's been snow chaos here.
Really?
But truthfully, it's a beautiful province.
Yeah.
We moved out here just because basically she has allowed me to really kind of pursue my dreams and my goals with Sleeping Bag Studios and do what I love. And there is no possible way to thank somebody for that, but the idea that the studio was portable and she had an opportunity out here in the East to do better in her own job.
Yeah.
There was just no way that I could say no to that.
Yeah.
Even though I felt like, I'd certainly built up a reputation in Vancouver and the location itself was nice. I loved my house. Everything about it was great. But to even have the opportunity to repay about a tenth of that favor in life, if this was her goals, if this was her dreams, if she wanted to go and see what she could do in terms of her own work. She's a chocolatier, or she's a manager, really.
Wow.
Area manager, whatever you want to call it. She's a bigwig now, but she does a fantastic job, and she's really the best part about it, Rebecca, bar none, is that she came out here and she actually did it.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like she came out here and then kind of danced around it or didn't find her way. She came out here and crushed it.
Yeah.
She got herself promoted. She kept moving up. She's doing all the right things. And again, just to be able to watch that happen has been just as rewarding as pretty much anything I've done at Sleeping Bag. You know, just to be able to just pick up and move.
Do you find that inspiring for what you're doing as well? That it kind of eggs you on?
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, she's my support system in every possible way. So, you know, it's if she's happy, if she's succeeding, then I'm doing the same, and it's kind of just always the way it's been. She doesn't have a clue about anything when it comes to music. That's a fact. But I love her. She's great. Yeah, she is. She's fantastic. She would tell you that too. But yeah, she's very much Jack Johnson and people that wear sandals. That would be her music. And
very nice.
Hey, you know, again, we all like what we like. She likes about 3 songs that I've written out of that 600 I was telling you about.
Oh, she's honest with you about it then.
Oh yeah, probably too much so, really. Yeah. But I use her as my litmus test, believe it or not, because, you know, I think that, again, as reviewers, we can get inside our heads, you know, almost too much sometimes when we're being critical of a record, or sometimes even just that second perspective sometimes can make things just really snap into focus for us.
Yeah.
And you know, I always tell bands, like, if you want to know what a hit song is, really just run it by this fine lady right here. If my wife gives you the nod of approval, I'm telling you, you've got a legitimate song.
Yeah.
I can tell you that there's a song that I like, and I can tell you the reasons that I like it all day long. But when it comes to the appeal of what people love to hear in music, what appeals to the masses, she's a radar for that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know why she doesn't do music stuff, because she gets it, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
In the slow rain passing by.
Okay, cool. So what, apart from writing music reviews then, are there other things that you want to move into over the next couple of years, like other ventures you want to bring into Sleeping Bag Studios?
Definitely. And thank you for asking that.
You're welcome.
There is behind the scenes, I'm doing a lot of writing, and that's not something I've ever put out there before. So you're the first to know that. But really, that's kind of where I'd like to take it all next. And it's some of it's musically related. Some of it's just straight fiction. Some of it's almost non-fiction. A lot of it is just kind of writing about my life in a different way, I guess, rather than writing about other people's music kind of thing. It's more about the full experience of what's got me doing what I'm doing today. That's what I'm writing right now.
You mean like an autobiography or like a day-by-day journal?
Kind of, yeah. I would say a good mix between the two of those things,
right.
Really. And I think that what I've learned is definitely that writing daily, I'm sure you've noticed this too, it sure makes it easy. And again, I think that applies to probably all of your passions. Anybody that does something on a daily basis or gets in there creatively, the more you put yourself in it, the more you get out of it, the faster it comes to you.
Just keep doing it.
Yeah, so, really I've found that for myself personally and what I feel like I can offer the world, the best thing I've been able to do is string some great words together. They're not even my words. I didn't come up with them, but I know how to put together a decent sentence.
So you're writing with an audience in mind already?
No. That would be another thing that I try not to. I've actually had that debate with my wife quite a few times, just talking about how to approach writing this that autobiography, if you will, that and how to do that. Like, do you use the names of people that you knew when? I'm not a famous person by any stretch, so I almost look at it as a what's the harm kind of situation. Nobody knows those people. They're people that would have been part of my childhood. They're memories of mine. Does that mean I'm entitled to them? Can I put them out there? It's kind of been a neat adventure that way in that sense. But I think that for me, a lot of what's key is really just making sure that I'm almost not considering that audience in a way, and just making sure that I'm sticking to what's important in the art itself, and just again making sure that I'm happy with the results. So
telling the truth above everything. That's cool.
And it's not like I've got any kind of massive truth bomb to reveal or anything like that.
It's just it's your story.
Yeah, it's just I wanted to put it out there as honestly as I can, and I feel like in a lot of spots that certainly doesn't paint me as the good guy of my own history a lot of the time. It's but I think that that's important. I think it's important to recognize those moments of the journey just as much, so that you kind of really get a sense of what it is that does make a person at their core.
Yeah. Do you think it's important to read a lot as well as a writer, or just to write and write and write and write?
Love that question too. I think, there's different versions of me that would have responded to that differently. I think probably about a decade ago, I would have told you don't need to read a thing.
Right.
And I think now I'm usually in the middle of about 4 books at a time.
Like fictional books.
Both, really.
Right.
Yeah, I read some, I don't know if, I'll put it to you this way. Do you consider Fire and Fury fiction or nonfiction?
Right.
A lot of people, it's hard to say, right? It could be either. But I like to think it's nonfiction. I think that's real. So, I'm looking at it that way. I read a lot of things like that, but I also read a lot of, like Henry Rollins writes a lot of columns. Or he used to for I think LA Weekly or LA Times or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So I like to read a lot of non-fictional kind of stuff like that too, but I like to read a lot of just normal stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to find myself repeating certain I don't know, certain vocabulary points in a lot of my articles. So I'm like,
Yes.
right, I need to go and read something weird now. So I'll go and read something that I would not read normally.
Totally, right?
Yeah, just to get a different perspective.
And then you get to that word that you haven't used in forever, or like 10 years, or you totally forgot it existed, and you see it in print and you're like, yes,
yeah, a little light bulb.
I can use that in the next article I write. And I totally understand that. Like, believe me, I hear you on every level there.
Awesome. Do you ever struggle with motivation or like staying positive when you're writing?
Yeah,
and how do you overcome that?
I think, they say do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, right? That's what they say. I don't think that that's true, and I think that that's okay. I think that you should work hard at what you love. I think that I wrote a song called Your Art Will Kill You, and it was a way for me to express that I think it should, or it should try, it should have its hands around your throat, being the thing that almost puts you in the grave, because I think it's important to go after what you love or what you're passionate about with everything that you got. And I think that especially as indie artists or creators of any kind, if you really do want to put yourself out there, if you're sleeping 8 hours a night, you're not going to win that war. I wish that was the case, but I went through, I think, the first 2 years at least, Rebecca, I would say if I got 5 hours of sleep in a night, that would have been a miracle. Like for a good 2 years straight, that was probably about 3 and 4 hour nights of sleep, just trying to get everything set up as best I could so that it would continue on doing what it does today. And I think that kind of level of dedication is exactly what's needed.
And you see, you've proven that it pays off for yourself.
I have for myself, in that sense, for sure, because I'm at the point now where this allows me to work from home.
Yeah.
It allows me to lounge around in my pajamas all day long. I don't have to dress up in a suit and tie, but I can still feel happy about what I'm doing on a creative level. You know? So I think I'm very fortunate that that's the case. I know that that's not ideal and for everybody, and it's certainly, in terms of your question about motivation, it can be extremely tough to motivate yourself. I'm sure you've probably experienced that yourself. It's tough to always be the champion in your corner. The key to getting around that, if from what I would understand, I think you got to have a good support network, or you got to have, again, those kind of measurements of success that allow you to kind of feel good about what it is you're doing. So, whether it's for yourself, somebody that you reviewed for the site, and they come back at you and go, Rebecca, this is the greatest thing anybody's ever said about my band. Thank you. That's going to lift you up, and that's going to kind of keep you going, right?
Yeah, totally.
I love that kind of stuff. That's what I get out of bed for. I live for those comments. I don't write for those comments, but I certainly love it when they happen,
Yeah.
And to be truthful, a lot of that is just because I don't get a lot of that from anywhere else, I don't... when it comes to friends and family, I think that my experience has been very similar to the bands and artists that I've worked with. I think all people that make things on a creative and artistic level really want to share them with the rest of the world, and the most important people that they're going to share them with are the people that they're closest to. And as much as we'd love all those people to have all the time in the world to do it, they're still human beings, and they still don't.
Yeah.
So I think that can often be the toughest thing, and if you end up feeling isolated like that, it gets tougher and tougher to motivate yourself. So, there's, I know you were going to ask me about mistakes. I might be jumping ahead here, but one of the mistakes I feel like I made in this whole thing was just that I kind of let passion destroy a lot of what could have been. I got myself kind of too amped up and too invested and too, you can only sleep 3 hours a night. you know, and all of a sudden it kind of became wrong to sleep 8 hours a night if you were a part of this project or whatever. And I
Right.
pushed some people away. There's no doubt in my mind that I pushed some great people away.
You mean you put too much pressure on it?
For sure, you know, and it wasn't even so much that I was actively cracking the whip on anybody else. It was just a more of I'm going to put myself into the dirt and lead by example.
Yeah.
And it kind of became one of those things where it was like, if that's what it takes to keep up to you, man, I don't want to do it, you know, kind of thing. And you know what? I totally get it. On one level, I get it. And on a whole other level, I don't get it at all. Because, again, I felt like that was exactly what was required to be able to keep this thing moving in the right direction so that it would become a long-term thing. And I think, again, if you don't kind of really put yourself into it, if you don't give it that chance, if you don't give it your everything and know that you gave it your everything, I think that you risk having a shorter-term project, band, creation, whatever it is that you're doing. I think it's got a shorter lifespan.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to balance, is it? And people have always said it's lonely at the top, and that's exactly the reason, because you do have to put yourself into it entirely, and you're often the only one doing that.
Yeah, well, it separates. You learn so many things, right? You, especially if you're involving friends or family, that kind of stuff. You really do learn who's kind of going to be there for you year after year, and who's maybe not.
Yeah.
And you know, I think, again, right, it's a hard lesson to learn, but I think it's just one of those things you have to recognize. Everybody's got their own interests. I would love it for everybody to be interested in music, but that's just not the case.
No. What would you say to keep in mind then? Because I think with anything that you take on, whether it's creative or it's just some new business or thing that you're putting yourself into, the first 2 years at least are usually quite difficult, you know, whether it's income and just not happening, or you're not getting a response or whatever. What did you keep in mind for that initial, when you weren't getting much sleep and you were putting all these things into action? What did you have at the back of your mind when you were finding it difficult?
I think that's where, in those first 2 years, I'd probably go against my own advice and say that you do have to be your own champion.
Right.
You know, I think that if you don't believe it, it's certainly not going to happen. You know, and in that first 2 years, you're right. Things end up, no matter how good they start, things will get to a point where it will rock so hard, where you'll wonder whether or not you've made that right decision. And again, if you don't have that network of people around you that are kind of, what would I say, confirming that you've made that right decision, then I think that you get a lot of self-doubt in the process, right? And that can really, it can affect your art, it can affect your business, it can affect all kinds of different things. It can affect your health. You know, so it's one of those things you really have to watch out for, I suppose.
Yeah. Awesome. I've gone in a...
Did I answer that?
Yeah, definitely. I've gone in a sort of squiggly order through my very vague notes, and
I always colored outside the lines.
Yeah.
That's right where I'm at.
We'll probably just come towards closing it up then, I guess, if that's all right with you. What do you like? Do you have any big sort of snippets of advice you can give to people that, I guess our audience is going to be people that make music and that are creative, and they don't necessarily want to be like, I don't know, the Foo Fighters, but they want to be able to have a life that is centered around the things they make? Right.
I mean, advice is to really, to be mindful of what other people think, with the exception of just don't let it taint your art. You know,
right.
I think that we do all kind of worry about how many likes we get, how many people are tagging whatever, and I think that can really ultimately, have you focusing on the wrong things.
Yeah.
I think that again, when it comes to numbers or anything like that, I don't really put a lot of stock in them. I don't worry about them. They don't keep me up at night. I could, if one person visits my site or 100 people visit my site, it's, Obviously, I'd prefer the 100, you know, but at the same time, it's one of those kind of things you just have to recognize there's an ebb and flow to that.
Yeah.
And it really just has to be about, you know, the art itself.
Oh.
And if you put yourself into it, that's where the most rewards are always going to be. You know, I don't think there's anything that could ever convince me that an artist or a band out there doesn't really want to share their stuff as much as they can to as many people as they can. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But I think at the end of the day, a large part of them is writing or recording that song as well to make sure that they're getting something out of themselves. You know, again,
Sure.
People write for all different reasons, but it's definitely an expression
Yeah.
of some sort, right? So I think that you know, it's important that they stay as true to that feeling as they can, and try and dig at it and find a way to get it out of themselves and get it on a record, because if you can figure that out, that is what connects. And it's it's rare, but I think it's something that potentially everybody might have that inside them somewhere. Some of us just might dig harder for it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know? Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Kinda, yeah, you know, like try and imagine the accountant the next time you see him, whoever it is. Yeah, it's just somebody that looks like they're so far removed from music, like totally, and just wonder, like, you know, is it just that you've never somehow tapped into that one thing that would make sense, you know?
Kind of like if you were, maybe you might have been born to be a snowboarder, but you were born in Jamaica and there wasn't any snow.
Yeah, totally, absolutely,
Kind of,
absolutely. Yeah. I think I like to think there's subtle clues. I'll give you a couple of mine. Sleeping Bag Studios. When I was in high school, I was not exactly the what you would call the greatest kid. I wasn't a bad kid by any stretch, but I was considered by many of my teachers to be an accidental genius of some sort. And genius was probably in quotations, but if I had any brains at all, it was just because I got lucky. You know, I happened to be interested in the subject. It wasn't because I cracked the books or I worked really hard. Music was the only thing that ever really interested me.
Right.
So when it came to school, I had a real tough time, especially when it came to high school, to the point where, well, I felt like my locker would be better served by storing a sleeping bag and a pillow inside of it to nap in between classes or during my free block.
Do you actually do that?
I did that, you know, and that is, what, 15 years before Sleeping Bag Studios even exists, but the signs of the universe were already there. Now, here's another one for you. Believe it or not, I just spent, I think, my summer of, this is going back quite a ways, this is going back to like grade 7. I think I started my summer by going to a creative writing class, one that my dad put me in. You know, great, all the other kids are out there running around for summer. I'm the guy that gets to be stuck indoors and do creative writing with a whole bunch of people that I've never even been to school with before, because this is summer school. We're all getting jammed into a weird class situation. It's bizarre. But you know what? It's the most rewarding experience I've had as a writer to that point in my life, and I'm stoked. Like, I'm coming back to grade 8, and I'm going to have some knowledge. I'm going to have an ability, a skill, and I'm so excited. And I get to my social studies class, or they called it humanities at the time. It was social studies and English combined over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, I walked into the class, I sat down. My teacher's name was Mr. Springer. I'll never forget him. He's crazy. But basically, he looked around the class after we all sat down, and he looks at one kid, and he's like, you, greasy, and you, grungy, pointing at me, and you over there, I don't even know what your deal is, but you're going, and you, Worf, with the eyebrows, like Star Trek Next Generation guy. It was a different time then. You could call kids a lot of weird things. And so he says, get out into the hallway. And I mean, I've been in his class for like 2 minutes. I have no idea what's going on. And it ends up being that what he wants us to do is there's like a test program. A student program, a student-led idea from the University of British Columbia. They had a student teacher come through who was apparently going to teach us how to write. After I just spent my entire summer volunteering to write, I was now being put and immediately assessed because I looked like a dime store version of Kurt Cobain at the time. So I got immediately assessed just on a physical level that I must need some extra help. And so I was put in this class for half of that 2-hour block I would go and spend, and believe it or not, the only thing that we did was compare and contrast essays. That was it. So comparing one thing to another and writing about it over and over and over again. And what do I do now? Again, it's kind of weird. You know, I like to think there's obviously a lot of things about music that don't make it such a bland equation where it feels like the same thing over and over and over again. But it kind of still is. And it's kind of weird how life can kind of set you up for things like that, even if you don't realize that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Even the way that I joined Kludge magazine, the online magazine that I started with, was the same kind of circumstances. I found a random CD from one of your boys over there in the UK, actually, electronic artist Aphex Twin.
Ah, nice.
It was just a random sampler CD. It was 5 songs. It was for the Druck Hughes album. It was just laying on a bar stool, probably like 12:30 at night in Seattle, a city I wasn't even from. And I just looked around like, is this anybody's? Whose is this? And there's nobody even there. And you could see that there was about 3 or 4 more of them just kind of scattered around the bar. I didn't even have any idea who Aphex Twin was at that time. We put that CD on as we crossed the border and came back to Canada. And by the time I got home, I was convinced that I needed to know everything about Aphex Twin. And I went online right away, checked it out, found a couple of interviews. I don't know if you've ever checked it out, but if you have the time, do it.
No, yeah.
Because his interviews are absolutely wild. Like,
really?
I mean,
no, I never have. Never.
He basically just refuses to answer questions in any kind of legitimate way. So a lot of his answers are like all consonants and 4 numbers, and that's supposed to be a word kind of thing. Like,
really?
It's just absolute madness, yeah. And it got to the point where I went down the rabbit hole so far that I found this one interview that he had done with a magazine called Kludge Magazine. And I was like, I reached out to the editor right away. His name was Arturo. And I said, how did you get an interview with this guy? And secondly, how can I do what you're doing? You know, and I think that that's one of the most important things that people forget, is that we are pretty much all a click and a heartbeat away from each other at this point.
Yeah.
You know, just like, I like to think a lot of the reasons that we're even talking today was, partially based on a tweet that I sent way back when.
Yeah.
Just saying, hey, Rebecca, I see you out there, and I know you're doing an awesome job, and I just want to say thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that for artists, for bands, for people that want to look for that next level up or that ally in what they're doing, sometimes it's just as simple as just reaching out and saying hi. You even mentioned success stories earlier. There's a band named Aztec that I can think of, which is one of my favorite stories. Aztec is from Victoria, BC, over there on the island, and they really look up to a band called All Get Out. And honestly, I don't know All Get Out, but what I do know is that Aztec knows All Get Out. That's a band that they really look up to. And when it came time for them to make their music and go out there and find a producer, they just reached out to the lead singer and said, "Hey, man, I really like your band and I love what you guys do. Is there any way that would you ever consider, like, could you produce my record?" And all of a sudden that door gets opened, and all of a sudden that's what's happening. And what better compliment,
Yeah, I think there's a certain knack to that, because I guess I'm quite introverted, and I used to find it hard to ask things. But the more you ask, you will get some no's occasionally, and at first that makes it quite hard. You're like, oh, I'm not asking anybody else because that person said no. But the more you ask, the more you're going to find the nice people that you do connect with, and then you just kind of back and forth from there.
You definitely get that kind of, it's trial by fire sometimes.
Yeah.
You end up getting shot down, I think, quite a bit as an artist. And I think that, you're right. You just kind of got to soldier through it and just keep on battling, because on the other side of that is creative freedom.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
What could be a better thing than that?
Absolutely. And it gets to the point that you're just immune to anything negative, because there's so much positive going on elsewhere, and most people are
totally right.
Nice.
I'd love to. I would. Maybe your experience is different. I don't think it is. I bet you it's close. What would you say, Rebecca? I think 96%, I would say, of the indie artists and bands out there, maybe even more, positive experiences.
Absolutely.
To me, it's phenomenal. I think there's nowhere out there in the world that's going to run that high of a percentage of just positive, good experiences.
No, by all means.
And that's one of the things that's just absolutely mind-blowing to me, and something how can you not be appreciative of that when you're in it every day?
I wouldn't have been able to do it for this long, I don't think, and I wouldn't want to do it much longer if it wasn't the case. Totally. Yeah.
How long have you been doing it, if you don't mind my asking? I'm not supposed to be interviewing you right now, but I'm kind of curious.
It's just over 2 years. It was about November 2016, I think.
Right.
15 it would have been, yeah. Just over 2 years.
Everybody knows you guys already. Stereo Stickman's huge.
I don't know about that. But when I first started it, we were living in a van, so I kind of just spent my entire time trying to build the audience up and trying to just freelance and connect with people and stuff to make it. I guess it got bigger than I expected quite quickly, which is awesome.
No kidding.
But even so, in that time, I've encountered very few people who aren't nice, and even when they're not, it's just that they're not particularly nice. They're not rude or anything. I've not had anyone be rude so far, touch wood. So
yeah, I've never had anybody threaten me or anything weird like that. I've never gotten into a weird interview altercation that I can think of in that sense.
Yeah.
There was a point, actually, the funniest one of those things that I can think of was when I did start getting back into interviewing and doing them live and in person and in the studio again. I got super ambitious one day, and I was like, I did a couple in the month before. I'm going to schedule 3 for one day. No problem. I just got to space it out right. As long as I got time to charge my batteries and everything and drain the memory cards, everything will be good.
Yeah.
It should be fine. So I end up interviewing, I won't name these guys because basically they came in and they were high. Like, I've seen high, I've been around musicians all my life. I know what it looks like and I'm fine with it. But it's still another thing entirely when you're trying to interview somebody and you've got to pull their eyesight down to your level again, right? So that they can take that question.
Yeah.
So my first interview was actually it was supposed to be about hour and a half block kind of thing. It was about going to be that much time. And I think I had about another hour in between me and the next one, who was a guy in a project called This Thing. And so about halfway through this first interview that I'm in, my wife comes in and she lets me know that this thing is already here. And I think to myself right away, I'm like, what? Like, how did I let time get away from me so quickly? Like, I felt like I've only been talking to these guys for 20 minutes. You're telling me it's been like 2 hours? What have I done? And I'm like beside myself. And so, like, thankfully that band had other places to be that day anyway. So I kicked them out of the studio, realized that I've actually only interviewed them for 24 minutes. I wanted to interview them for 90, totally lost track of time. Within 24 minutes, this other guy shows up, and he's like an hour and a half early. So I end up with this. Richard from this thing is an interesting cat. I'll put it to you that way. He's a very, very interesting cat. He speaking of cat, he hauled out a pink electric Hello Kitty guitar.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and you'll appreciate this because you've probably had this moment before too, where you see an opportunity like that as an interviewer, and what's the first thing you think? You see a full-grown adult man with stubble on his face pull out a electric pink Hello Kitty guitar. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying there's got to be a story behind that, right?
Oh.
So I'm thinking that's got to be a great question. How'd you get that guitar? I found it at a pawn shop. Okay, all right, so moving on, right? And I mean, it was a tough interview to get through, to the point where I'm not even kidding you. By the time it was done, Rebecca, I was like, I don't know if this is really what I want to do. I might have screwed up. I might have screwed up because I don't know if I'm any good at this. It wasn't so much Richard. It was on me. I was trying to figure out if I could really get back into it.
Yeah.
So the funny thing was that by the time it was over, we had Richard as an interview and we had him perform as well. And then by the time it was, I was plugging in cards and getting my batteries ready for my final interview of the day. And I turned around to say goodbye to Richard, and he was gone. I still don't. I'm convinced he's still living at the studio, like underneath the stairs or something. Like I ran out to the street because he came by bus. He didn't drive. That's why he was so early that day, was because he actually took the bus from Vancouver about an hour and a half away.
Right.
And then by the time he left, I looked up and down the street and he wasn't even there anymore. There was no physical explanation as to where Richard actually went. So I'm convinced he's still there living at Sleeping Bag Studios. But
are they still a band then?
this thing is an interesting project. I don't think, I honestly can't speak one way or the other to that. I don't know for a fact that it isn't, but I can tell you for a fact that Richard is the kind of guy that will find a way to make music for the rest of his life. So, that's, at the time when I met this thing, I was told it was a band of 7.
Mm.
I got 1 in the studio. I got Richard, right?
Right.
It seemed to be about as much of a band as it was kind of like a big giant hippie commune of people that may or may not make music every once in a while, and when they do, sometimes they play it together.
Yeah.
And they're called this thing. It was weird.
Very nice.
Not gonna lie, it was weird. The third band that night, though, if I can just take one more second of your time, was what really saved it. Because again, I'm drained at this point. This is now my 3rd interview of the day. I have fired up a song on the internet that I have just realized that, oh my God, I should probably just tell my wife to maybe go out with a friend for the night, because she's about to hate this and hate me for bringing this band into the studio. They're called The Pit. And the song I was watching was called I Wanna Plant Bombs Everywhere. And it's phenomenal, Rebecca. If you ever have a chance, go and Google that up. Go and look at it. The Pit, I Wanna Plant Bombs Everywhere. Amazing band. And, right away, it's kind of got like that Queens of the Stone Age kind of real riffage kind of rock.
Okay.
And it's 2 brothers. And at the time, there was a bass player as well. But 2 twin brothers. And those guys came in and basically changed everything. They took me from a point where I questioned whether or not I was doing the right thing or if I was heading in the right direction, to the point where I knew that I was. Yeah. And the reason why was because, again, I was able to look at that band and go, okay, wait a minute. You, Tyler, guy in the middle, You're looking a little bit pale, man. Like, explain to me what's going on and why aren't you getting any sunlight, brother? These two guys are looking healthy here. What's wrong? And it's like, yeah, I'm out there. I'm trying to promote the band. I'm trying to book the shows. I'm trying to do the artwork. I'm trying to this. I'm trying to that. And realizing just how much was being actually asked of an independent musician these days, or an independent band, in terms of the things that aren't related to their music. And it's not that, something like the artwork or something like that. Maybe that's something that they want to consider to be part of their music, and that's totally legit. I think that's wonderful. But, when it comes to like the marketing or the promotion or the spreading the word or the drawing people to the shows, the printing of tickets, the dealing with the merch, a lot of these guys, first of all, have no interest in doing it. Yeah. And second of all, they have no idea how. Yeah. So, I mean, watching these three guys who quickly became pretty much the nicest people I've still met to this very day. So scary looking, so homeless looking, so bearded, and just amazing rock stars. Like, I'm not even kidding. Trevor, the lead singer, I've seen him walk out in front of the shows that he's about to go and play, and people like offer him like half a cigarette, or like, hey man, like, do you need a sandwich or something like that? And it's like, he's about to go and rock the whole place, but people just assume he's like the homeless guy shuffling his feet out front. It's, it's just amazing, but they ended up being so sincere and so genuine and so nice and so out of left field that it absolutely changed the course of the entire direction.
Do you think do you think you had changed your approach by that point, having done the other two? Were you a bit more tentative, or?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's a completely good question. I think at that point I was exhausted and worn out. Right. And I think I definitely bit off more than I could chew at that point, by trying to take on three. Three would have been fine if the schedule had flowed the way that it was supposed to. But because I was so rattled and I was worried about, did I transfer the files off that memory card, or did I just delete them now? Like, I'm trying to switch everything and change everything and get it set up as quickly as I could, that I was in mad panic mode at that point. So, if anything, it was probably just kind of like a free-for-all. Like, I'm just going to let this one go and, hope for the best kind of thing. And
like you cared less at that point, so...
I think that's actually fair to say.
Do you think that's a positive thing then, when it comes to like... I
think it became a positive thing. I think, for me, that was a moment for sure where I was personally, I needed that experience to lift me back up. And if I didn't find it there somehow in that third act, that could have changed everything. But somehow these three hairy dudes come into the studio and everything changed, because it was such a positive interaction for something that really just didn't seem like it was necessarily going to go that way, from the impression you might get from the aggression and the intensity and the music of a song called I Want to Plant Bombs Everywhere. Like, it doesn't sound like they're going to bring you flowers or wine when they come and see you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then somehow they're just the most genuine people, so sincere about making it as musicians, so amazingly talented, and they're struggling. And I'm listening to this song, I'm listening to this single, and I'm going, if Queens of the Stone Age are this famous, why are you this famous? Yeah. It doesn't add up. The quality and the consistency and the caliber of the music is completely comparable. So how do we overcome that disparity is what I'm, I guess, working every day to kind of try and figure out, or try to battle against. Yeah. Much like you are.
No, I think about that a lot, because I think maybe, 30 years ago, it was that there were a certain amount of famous people, I guess, famous musicians sure. in each genre, and all the interviews were with those people, and all the features were about those people. So you get in your head this idea of what it is, and that, they're just the special ones that are chosen. And now there are a lot more people trying, and like you said, people realizing that they do have these talents in there and these passions and stuff. And
yeah,
but it's
how many artists and bands have you found that you know for a fact you'd way rather listen to those guys than some of the people
Absolutely.
that you know are making millions right now?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's, to me, that I don't know what the answer is any better than anybody else when it comes to how to fix that, but
Does
it's
it?
definitely something that exists.
I sometimes wonder though if it makes it more special, because I think sometimes the bigger names write songs to sell songs.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they write them formulaically, and whereas the smaller ones who just don't give a shit, they'll just write because they have to write. You know, they have to get it out, and those to me are the really interesting songs. I'm like, oh, this is like reading your diary. You know, it's really quite a special thing to listen to. So I don't know.
Here's the best example I can give you of that. And this is an exclusive for you, Rebecca, because I like you. Because Stereo Stickman deserves to have some dirt on me.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah, there was a time. I think I can say this. There was a time where Nickelback was a good band. Yeah, that's right. I said it. I've put it out there for the world to hear it, but it is a fact. You see, that is the thing. Like I said, I came from Vancouver.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about a band that can absolutely get destroyed by fame and fortune,
Yeah.
that is the one. I used to go and see Nickelback at, Commodore Ballroom or different places around Vancouver for in the neighborhood of $15 to $20. Probably couldn't see them for less than 80 to 100 now. I guess I have no idea. I wouldn't even look into it now. But back in the day, before they even had their first record out, they were playing shows around Vancouver where you couldn't travel an inch on the dance floor in front of the stage without trampling over 50 broken beer bottles from people just having the most insane time of their life and just going, I want another beer. Where does this bottle go? Here's good. Smash, and away we go. And the chaos and the fun and the scene itself was a really big time for Canada at that point. We had Nickelback and Matthew Goodband and I Mother Earth and Moist and the Our Lady Peace. The list just goes on and on of all of these amazing Canadian bands that were really killing it at this time. And then it just all happened out of nowhere. I don't know what happened to that guy. I don't know what happened to the music. What I presume happened is exactly like what you're saying. He figured out the formula.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's things, I'm sure you've probably seen them on the internet too, where they compare two Nickelback songs side by side. And here's where the verse changes. Here's where the chorus changes. And it is all of the same things. I think it's horrendous, personally. But, like I said, I would never listen to it now. I still like the first record. I do. I honestly, it's called Curb, and I think there's still some good songs on that. But
so have you got anything of theirs from when they were just a local band that were doing big? Did they give out CDs or anything like way back when?
No, that was the thing. They went from pretty much obscure to massive in our city, like almost overnight. It seemed overnight for us, for sure. There'd been some of us that had been out there seeing concerts where they were the opening band plenty of times throughout that year of build-up. But I used to have a job where I was driving parts from one city to the heart of Vancouver, and I would make a point of driving as fast as I could so that I had time to go and just fuck off at work, and I would go to a store called A&B Sound that was just all music and all CDs. And I remember going in there for about 3 months straight of solid Fridays, going into this store and finding a new representative in A&B Sound and going, hey, do you guys have that Nickelback CD? And having 3 months worth of time where somebody would look back at me and go, never heard of them. What? Like, you guys are playing this awesome song on the radio all the time. It's called Fly. You don't have the CD yet? No, apparently they don't even have a CD yet. So it was like, by the time that first disc came out, and by the time that they put out The State afterwards, it seemed like there was just absolutely zero time in between, and what was once special and actually good and completely killer live. They were amazing.
Yeah.
They were great. Those Broken Bottles were all pure out of enthusiasm. Like, you couldn't keep the crowd away from these guys. And then just all chaos, you know? All of a sudden, somehow this band just became so plastic and so methodical and so much the antithesis of pretty much everything that I think is special about music when it comes right down to it.
Yeah. I wonder if he's not... Surely, though, when you first start out, you write songs that mean something. I wonder if he's not creatively satisfied then by the formulaic stuff. But he's very, very rich, so he doesn't really care.
Well, again, right? Unfortunately, I think there is some proof to that. I think that he's kind of said that, on the record a couple times, that he doesn't care anymore and that he is that rich and famous at this point. But, I mean, again, right, it is all about, like we were talking about earlier, how you define success. And I think, if a band like that feels that they're successful, I don't know how. I don't care how many records they've sold. They went from something that was legitimate, something that had life in its veins, something that generally connected with the crowd, and you could feel it in the energy of the audience, and they could see it from the stage, and you could feel it from them in return.
Yeah.
And to watch that get destroyed over time, how can you call that success? You know what I mean? Like, I hope the mansion is warm, but at the same time, like, how do you sleep at night? Yeah, totally, right? How do you sleep at night? What have you done to us?
Oh, dear.
I'm picking on poor Nickelback too much, They deserve it. But
everybody picks on Nickelback, it's fine.
They do. It's an easy target.
It's really nice to chat with you finally after
Likewise.
seeing your work, and I think we've got a lot of things in common that we do. So
yeah, I was gonna say, don't be a stranger, Rebecca. If
No,
there's
no.
anything I can do to help, I'm not gonna profess to know what all of the struggles of Stereo Stickman might be, but like, I do mean what I say when I say we're all in this together, and if there is anything I can do to help you in your journey, I sincerely do extend that.
Thank you.
Whatever it is I can do and that I'm capable of, however I can contribute. If there's, we'll figure it out. We'll just keep talking.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's my advice. But even if it's as simple as, like I said, I've read your work. I've seen what you do, and I know that, first of all, you write a great article, and I can see that you care. It's no different than when I listen to music for a really short amount of time. Sometimes I scan through all my new stuff really quickly just to hear a certain amount of something that I'm looking for. It's a sincerity, a connection, a real passion that I think you can always hear and identify really quickly. And I see that in what you do. And I think, again, it's tough to stay motivated, and we gotta find those ways to remember that we're not, there's so many people out there. We could be competition, but we're not. You know what I mean? We're on that same side of the fence. So, if it's I'm happy to support you in what ways I can. So if that's putting a link up on my site saying, hey, go and visit Stereo Stickman next, I'm willing to do that kind of stuff, because, again, I think you're the right kind of person to work with. If you take a good look at the Sleeping Bag Studio site, you're not going to find a lot of people out there.
I appreciate that.
Because it's just not really something that I think there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
When it comes to our side of things.
Yeah.
And I think that, I know, I know what it's like over here. It's not, you can't listen to things all day long. I would love to, but even if I love to, you still need a break every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's tough to get that break in music sometimes, but you need it just like everything else, so that you can appreciate it when you come back to it.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how it goes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You have a fantastic night, Rebecca, and contact me anytime you need. Okay?
Enjoy your weekend. I will do.
All right. You do the same.
See you soon. Bye.